Hello, everyone. My name is Mari Fix McEwen, Saineta Bofush Koya Dentus from the Yew Tree Clan Ewing. And you are here at the Ancestors of the Four Directions workshop. What is it like to live in my skin? Healing racism together. And welcome to the 99 Days of Peace Conference, where we continue our four-part series. This is the second workshop in our series. And here we come to explore how to heal this racism and how to heal our world. Please trust this experiential process. There will be space for you to share your feelings and ideas in one or more of the four workshops in this series. So please make note if anything comes up for you during our workshops, as you are an important part of the whole and this solution. We can only do it together. First, we're going to start with ceremony. Let us start by purifying and sanctifying the space and calling in our ancestors. When Sister Olarisha Chise Aje calls for you to call in your personal ancestors and mentors, please actively call them into your physical space and into our circle. We will now begin the ceremony, and I pass to Sister Ava.
Creator, grandmothers, grandfathers, this is your granddaughter Wamadi Tawiya speaking. Welcoming all here from the four directions into this sacred circle. We cleanse and purify ourselves in a good way with the clearing powder of the cedar medicine and the gentleness of the sage. As the earth and fire join each other and transmute themselves, invite these healing medicines to completely wash over your body, mind, and spirit, bathing every thought, every word, and every deed brought into the sacred space and beyond as we explore the deep topics at hand. Visualize the washing away and clearing off of anything heavy and outmoded that you've carried with you and anything that you no longer wish to hold on to. Release it all and bless it all in a kind and gentle way. May you feel lighter, brighter, and clear to communicate in this purified circle of intention and creation. All my relations. I pass to the center.
And we pass to Sister Cynthia.
I call upon the spirits in the directions of the east. Erher, August, air, the elements of air. I call upon the spirits in the directions of the south. Jeshkart, August, Dochan, the element of fire. I call upon the spirits in the directions of the west. Yeter, August, Ishke, the element of water. I call upon the spirits in the directions of the north. Twishkert, August, June, the elements of earth. I call upon the above and below. Huas, August, Hish. And I call upon the directions of the out, within, and through. Amach, Isti, August, Frij. And I pass to the center.
Sister Chise.
We give praise with water to the four directions. Omi tutu, ona tutu ile tutu, tutu la roye. Olojo ni mojuba ibashe, iwa room mojuba ibashe, ila room mojuba ibashe, ariwa mojuba ibashe, gusu mojuba ibashe. Eshu odara, Eshu of the transformation of the primordial light. We give you greetings and we give you praise and we give you thanks. At this point, we would like to say mojuba. We give respect to all of our fathers. Ibai bai tono. We give respect to all of our mothers. Ibai bai tono. We give respect and honor to all of our mentors and teachers. Ibai bai tono. We give respect and honor to those who stood for our liberation and who continue to stand for our liberation. Ibai bai. We give respect and honor to all those we cannot remember. Ibai bai. Ibashe, ibashe, ashesheo. Montupel, I pass to the center.
Thank you. And so in your hearts and minds, call in your ancestors. Tordoing as spirit do hosent, agasi gosent niart, agasi niart tishkent, agasi tishkent ulus, agasin ulus in kert, agasin ulus in kert an grafwi, agasin grafwi and grada no baher fad, agasin grado na baha fad an grado alus spirit, agas gach mahas an vanen lesh. Great Spirit, bring us your protection, and in your protection, strength, and in your strength, understanding, and in your understanding, knowledge, and in knowledge, the knowledge of justice, and in the knowledge of justice, the love of it, and in the love of it, the love of all existence, and in the love of all existence, the love of Great Spirit and of all goodness. Remembering that justice also means to put into right relationship, to be in right relationship with the whole. Creator, let us listen deeply with our hearts so that we may open the door to healing within ourselves and between ourselves and our brothers and sisters. Knowing that even if our discussion here triggers wounds, defense, feeling misunderstood or pain, that what is arising is a signal from Spirit to reevaluate these things. Let us look deeply into the mirror of what our brothers and sisters experience in compassion and understanding, seeing in it the reflection of our own hurt, pain, needs, wants, and aspirations. Now, I know this is not easy, as while we go through this process, we may have obstacles to overcome and misunderstandings that happen. With love, all things are possible. So I dedicate this prayer and workshop to that process. With enough love, we can get through anything to understanding and back into harmony. If we look boldly at the shadow within ourselves and in the outside world, we may find that it no longer holds power over us, and that we free ourselves from any illusions and subconscious patterning. I now call to the heart within us that knows no fear, that seeks to set things into harmony, that dares to walk and live by the path of greatness for the healing of earth and all her peoples. May we look to this heart and know that together we have the power, no matter what it may look like or what we may have been told. The power to step into this alignment with life and each other for the good of the whole. And may we have the courage to take that path and make it a reality. Please, everyone all together, feel yourself expanding into the whole of life, holding hands with each other of like heart and intention, and then all of life, forming a new way that is in alignment with love and life itself. Your original nature. I now place our individual and group prayers for love and healing and for this workshop into the fire as we begin. Bless these prayers, Creator. Yuhas. All my relations. Taking time to add your prayers. Add your prayers to the fire now. Bless these prayers, Creator. Once again, Duhas, all my relations. As you listen and participate in this workshop, stereotypes and generalizations may be referred to, like white people do this or Black people do that. Know that these generalizations are markers of tendency in a society, that we are only working with them to make some headroom into larger issues. Please hold an open stance while this happens, knowing there is a greater goal that will be addressed as we have our eyes on the big picture here. And before we continue with our workshop, I want to introduce a communication technique that will be introduced during the latter half of our presentation to gain more clarity and understanding about our topic of racism and how racism impacts us emotionally and socially. This technique is called nonviolent communication. Nonviolent communication, or NVC for short, is a technique that reduces conflict and connects people to life-giving communication, heart to heart. Its purpose is to strengthen our ability to inspire compassion from others and to respond compassionately to others and ourselves. NVC guides us to reframe how we express ourselves and to hear others by focusing our consciousness on what we are observing in them, feeling, needing, and what is being requested. And it helps us to observe ourselves and our needs too. NVC skills will assist you in dealing with major blocks to communication, such as demands, diagnoses, and blaming. It is truly one of the keys that can help transform this world, because when you embrace nonviolent communication, you embrace the possibility that we can speak from a place of love, cutting through all the projections and the assumptions, finding the heart of the matter. If you were triggered or offended, as some of the material presented or shared here might be disturbing, I invite you to notice what need you may have that has triggered the feeling. As an example, if you feel that you're being indirectly accused of something, you might find that you have a need for fairness or to be seen for who you are. Make a note of this. Likewise, if you hear something that triggers you in what your brothers and sisters share, I invite you to look at the heart of what they are expressing and why. What are they needing by saying what they have said? Compassion, consideration, understanding, fairness, to be seen, safety for their children. There will be an opportunity for you to experience NVC later, and see how it can help facilitate conversations and understandings, as well as share, express, and explore feelings and insights together. As a special note, if you find yourself feeling extremely triggered or overwhelmed, be sure and take care of yourself. Only you know what you need. If there is a deep need for support, we have placed a document from our licensed counseling team in the chat with resources for you to access. And we're going to place that there now again. In the last workshop, you heard me share why I created this workshop. That I just couldn't continue to look into my Black friend's eyes and just let what is going on in the world keep going on. And that I had the recognition that if I didn't take action, that I am complicit on some level. The hurt of one is the hurt of all. We're all intrinsically linked. We're all responsible for each other. We can't just let each other sink into the pit thinking, oh, well, it wasn't me, and go about our daily business. Really, that is not love. Something dies inside when it looks away. Something shuts down. And I want to live. And yes, it's a lot, with the structure of society keeping us on the hamster wheel, exhausted and constantly busy. But I came here instead to live the life we dreamed possible. I came to live all out and protect and love to my very core. So here we are again. You may not agree with everything that I'm saying, but I'm sure you might agree with some of it. What are we going to do about all of this? How are we going to recreate the world so we can all thrive? And that includes the planet. Let's explore, let's cry, let's get real with each other. So real that we take off the cover on our hearts and are able to see the love in each other's faces. Let's cultivate the deepest of relationships, where we can truly hear each other and meet all needs, where we heal each other from all the shame, the pain, the dysfunction, and even back through our forefathers. No one left behind, not even the earth and her creatures. A true, unadulterated act of love to end all this madness that reverberates with a resounding yes. Step by step, we move into our path of our own heart's yearning. Through the darkest shadows, onto the path of sacred dream. Now we start into the shadow of systemic racism. Sister Cynthia, please introduce yourself. I pass to you.
My name is Cynthia Klatt Cunningham, and I'm a descendant of the Celtic, Slavic, and Scandinavian peoples, and I live in Tucson, Arizona, the ancestral lands of the Tohono O'odham and Pasquale Yaqui people. I'm a member of the Ancestors of the Four Directions, and I'm a counselor serving my local community. Now, yesterday, our nation celebrated Independence Day, a day to proclaim we live in the land of the free. A day where we are to salute the flag and claim liberty and justice for all. I didn't celebrate Independence Day this year because it felt like hypocrisy. Because liberty and justice has not been for all in America. While America threw off one oppressive colonizer in 1776, the elite who moved into power became the new oppressor and colonizer of America. As long as there is a hierarchical system of power based on dominance, defeating the man on top only moves us up one level on the rung. It doesn't destroy the system that maintains the abuses of power. Now, the mythology of America that many of us learned about in school as children was very unlike the America that existed in reality. What some Americans may still not know or refuse to admit is that many of our founding fathers were slave owners, including George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin. Their definition of all men being created equal did not include Black men, regardless of whether or not they were free. And it didn't include women, but that's an issue for a future workshop series. So, when I heard a reading of the speech of Frederick Douglass, an African American abolitionist and statesman from July 5th, 1852, it forever changed how I would think about Independence Day. Frederick Douglass had escaped from slavery and was the first African American nominated for Vice President of the United States as a running mate and vice presidential nominee for Victoria Woodhull on the Equal Rights Party ticket. What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him, more than all other days in the year, the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham, your boasted liberty an unholy license, your national greatness swelling vanity. Your sound of rejoicing are empty and heartless, your denunciation of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence, your shout of liberty and equality, hollow mockery. Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings, with all your religious parade and solemnity, are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy. A thin veil to cover up crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages. There is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of the United States at this very hour. Today, can you really put your hand over your heart and truthfully declare there is liberty and justice for all? How do you define liberty? It's the, quote, state of being free within society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, or political views. Are all Americans free to walk down the street, shop in a store without being surveillanced? No. Is there justice for all? Whether or not you end up in the justice system and what kind of outcome you have is heavily dependent on the color of your skin. Is there economic justice where all Americans are treated equally when applying for home loans and access to housing and how they're paid for their time and effort? No. Are we one nation, indivisible? We are clearly a deeply divided country, more and more each day. I believe we have to look at the inequities that actually exist instead of pretending that everything is okay. We're all equal now, like the advertisers would like you to, so they can sell you their red, white, and blue napkins and streamers and whatever else they can profit from you with. The culture of white supremacy tries to perpetuate the myth that America is the greatest nation in the world and that we should be so lucky to live here that we should not even question what goes on. And to believe that the American way is the best way and that we are idealized by the rest of the world as the pinnacle of civilization. Well, Michael Moore's film, Where to Invade Next, helps to shatter this myth. When interviewing a female CEO in Iceland, he asks her, if you could say anything you want to the American people, what would you say? And she says, I wouldn't want to live in the States even if you paid me to. I would never want to be your neighbor, never, ever, because you don't treat your fellow Americans the way you should. How can you come home and feel well knowing there are so many people that can't eat, that are sick and can't go to the doctors, can't get an education? How can you feel okay with that? I couldn't. Well, I can't either. So this July 4th, I made a commitment to myself and to spirit to stop perpetuating the myth, to face the difficult and painful truth, a necessary step towards righting the wrongs and coming up with real solutions aimed at building a new culture based on compassion, love, and understanding. The New Age culture will try to convince you to keep the vibe high, ignore the shadow, and stay in the light always. But what they don't realize is this approach actually supports the white supremacist agenda of wanting you to turn away, say nothing, do nothing, look no further. While facing our personal and collective shadows can be quite painful, we're here to go through it together. The ancestors of the four directions are here today to bravely begin a new tradition, declaring July 4th Interdependence Day, a movement that is not based on glorification of war and freedom for a few at the top, but a celebration of us all, an acknowledgement of the sacredness of the whole, and of the interconnectedness of each and every one of us, the two-legged, the four-legged, the no-legged, the stones, the waters, the fire, the air, and the earth. A new tradition yearning for the good of the whole instead of the profit for the few, for living responsibly in right relationship with one another and with Mother Earth and all of her creation. This new tradition boldly starts with a deep investigation into the actualities that stand before us. We will take an unflinching look into the destructive powers that have wreaked havoc in the very fabric of our society. And now I pass to the center for our next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Yes, I have a graphic that I designed for us to start celebrating, and it was just recently posted. Start celebrating interdependence. Take back the holiday and make it something that is applicable to the present and our needs. As another survivor of colonial religious native boarding schools, our next presenter, esteemed elder, Grandmother Patricia Ann Davis. Please share with us the atrocities your people have endured, what it's been like to live in your skin, or whatever is called to you to speak on from spirit. Honored to have you. Thank you, Patricia. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. It's nice to see all of you. Thank you, Mari, and also thank you to John for supporting through the Sign Network. That is a very timely and valuable resource for this event. And I would like to begin with the way I traditionally introduce myself in both the English and the Navajo language, or Deneh-Bazad, which is the sacred language and words of the holy people. And by the way, we're all the holy people, and the holy people are our collective primordial ancestors. All of my relatives, my spiritual family, Nana, Ya'at'e, Shik'e, Shidne, Alnalso. Again, hear me when I tell you that it is impossible in Deneh-Bazad, our sacred language and words, to say, we cannot say, there's no way to say, but not you. but not you. There's no way to exclude someone, the other side of the ocean, the other side of the fence, the other side of the river, the other side of the street, or maybe, oh, but not you because you're not the right color. That does not exist in our language context, container, or terminology. So thank you, Mari, again. Thank you for this opportunity to be visible, to educate from the indigenous people of this land. And we're the original stewards of the earth, because the earth is our actual physical body. Water is our emotive element, which is we have to empty and cleanse the maladaptive emotion of hate, envy, greed, jealousy, anger, shame, guilt, fear, and so on, which are all existing within this construct, this artificially designed construct of racism. And then reframing is then after the emptying, we, and I understand this as an emptying ceremony in which then we can reframe our thinking to our collective survival, that we may thrive into the future. The fire is the temperature, and air I define as the perfect love and peace of love and peace, the perfect love and peace of Creator within creation simultaneously. And that word is nesh'ehdiyin. So I'm not teaching you from English, I'm teaching you from a ceremonial language, and the sounds and the vibration interconnected with the natural order context that everyone is governed by. We're all governed by these natural order laws of natural order laws that we call it, which is an all-encompassing concept of holiness and wholeness. There is no competing ideologies. There's no competing organizations representing those ideologies. It is all encompassing that we're existing in this collective oneness, Hojo. And then we are, this air is our in-breath and out-breath, and it's the very life itself. So we're also simultaneously existing with the environmental, our Mother Earth, our home, our habitat, our sanctuary. And then the water is in the oceans and the lakes, the rivers, and we have names for male and female rain. And then fire is our radiant sun, and fire by friction in our fireplace, and electricity, and air, perfect peace and love of Creator. So this is our in-breath and out-breath. And so I always remind people that life is not all take, and that it's not all give. And this natural order context and terminology that I have just described to you is the fundamental basis of equality. And so in the Deneh-Bazad, my traditional greeting to you is my boarding school colonial name is Patricia Ann Davis, and Shia, that means what I'm called. That's not who I am, that's what I'm called. And then Adone, a Mississippi band of Choctaw, and then Hachitni, Bashalchin, Ado, Choctaw, Chata, Dene, Ada Shache, Kia Ani, Ada Shanala, Ado, the Dene, Biyaja Nchle. And that is my maternal and paternal bloodline lineage of my sacred self identity. And every person does exist in this the sacred self identity through our bloodline lineage from our mother and our father. And so from there, I want to tell you that I wrote about how I have survived the racism in my life. I am 75, turning 76 this year. And I was born on the Navajo reservation, not in any urban area or town or neighborhood or city. I'm a 100% quote American Indian reservation, although we don't call ourselves American, we're not, and we're not Indian. We use the word Dene because that means that we're a precious child of the holy people. And that is inclusive. So I wrote what I have been saying to myself and thinking all along as a survivor of the empire folly in this country that I call invasion. It's a historical invasion, and then there's genocide, that's mass murder, and then plunder, which is mass theft of indigenous land and resources. Now, I put it like this for us today: may we use the trauma and the transgenerational trauma and woundedness of our lives as compost to grow the flowers of peace and to grow the garden of love. So I say that as an affirmation for the time we spend together today. And I'm going to speak a little bit about where I learned from a workshop by the People's Institute. This is African American People's Institute who give undoing racism workshops out of well, I took those workshops, undoing racism, and they invited me because they wanted an indigenous person in their environment, along with not just Black and white, but to have indigenous presence. And they described this in such a way that while I may not be exactly quoting how they define it, I define it in this way: that it's the, I'm going to say, mega main obstacle to the unifying principles and the unity that we as humane beings and as peacemakers would live between the earth, Mother Earth and Father Sky. Our healing ceremony for that we call Hojoj ceremony. And that ceremony is literally living to reframe our thinking, to tell our body correct information, to live the loving way as a way of life. Just to give you an example of how this, the Nehbazad language, spiritual language speaks. So for systemic change, that means we have to deconstruct the root cause of this racism. And my thinking that it is the assumption of superiority. And that assumption of superiority and privilege and entitlement is constructed by it's a construct designed by the people who use it to control and manipulate the world resources for their own benefit. And that is how I simplify the word racism. But it's also synonymous with hatred, because the self-hatred is the war within projected outward. And in that projection, then we have suffered the bondage and slavery in many forms. The first one was interest, which is morally, ethically inhumane. And that was by the money changers and so on. It takes many forms. Now we see today that the prison system is a new form of slavery and so on. we will all articulate about our own personal view of some of what I'm saying. And then myself, I'm going to speak from here just a little bit and highlight some of the memories that I lived and experienced, which I don't always, I try to get them into my teaching in a formal, I'm teaching in a formal way principles from the ceremonial language of healing and the processes and practices that we have used for thousands of years, the words we have used for thousands of years. And I named it Indigenous Ceremonial Change Process. That is naming what is out of balance, and then correcting, meaning we must identify the root cause, and then we must deconstruct it, dismantle it. So I give an honoring to my late father, Anselm Davis Sr. And by the way, Davis is a Welsh name. That is not our original tribal name. I have a ceremonial name, and it's used only in ceremony. And then he said to me, literally, quote, "Undo the thinking that caused our people so much violence and suffering." And that has been my lifelong work, in which then I had to figure out how to understand the two thinking systems of English as a trade and commerce language. I call it Eurocentric, dualistic, inverse thinking language, because there's a belief that we're born in a deficient self-image, and that they hold the external remediation process to remediate us out of this deficient self-image to some of their desired end state, such as civilization. And so today we question, how is it that they're civilizing us? And then we're sitting here watching what is happening to the Palestinians, and what is happening to the Ukraine. Is the very same thing that happened to us by the very same people in this generation, multi-generational empire folly. So I'm going to just highlight a few experiences, and then later today, after people speak, if there are any specific questions, then I will wait for that to be called on, and specifically for something that people might want to need to give a little bit more details and elaborate on. One of my very first experience of being a leveler and truth teller. I'm born in the, my father was, and mother actually went to the boarding school called Haskell Indian School in Lawrence, Kansas, and that's how they met. And my father brought my mother to Lukachukai, Arizona, very remote place in northeast Arizona. And there was no road there from Fort Defiance. There was 60 miles of just wagon tracks. And see my grandparents, who did not know one word of English. And so I'm the 11th of 12 children. However, where I was born and where I initially grew up from birth to 5 years old was in what we call Eastern Navajo Agency on the New Mexico side, north of what was the old 66 highway. And there I started school in first grade, and I had a teacher. I'm just gonna, when we use the word tribal people, when we use the word white, we're not talking about everybody. We're talking about specifically people who, in attitude and behavior, the word belagana is a slang word. It doesn't mean white people. It means anybody who uses their five senses against themselves and others. That's how they describe. That's how they first encountered them and noticed. And our language is very descriptive. And so this white lady teacher, very large, very heavy. There was some fighting in the bathroom, and this was a one-room schoolhouse. And I ran to tell her that there were some children because I didn't want anybody to get hurt. And this woman took me and she took the wooden paddle and she spanked me. She spanked me to crying so hard I couldn't stop. That's first grade in a one-room schoolhouse on the Navajo reservation. And so from there, there was this attempt of the Catholic to send me to, they call catechism. And I couldn't connect there because I was born a seer and a visionary, and my father noticed that immediately right away. So at age 8, he initiated me into his healing practices and ceremonies and the Tachitni and Kia'ani authentic medicine people. My uncle, my aunt, my clan relatives on Tachitni and Kia'ani, they were my teachers this day and still are. And so I had very unique childhood. So when I first met John Raymer, one time he said, you know what, you're an anomaly, because he had never met someone like me, that I have this color skin accordingly to my mother's people didn't go on the Trail of Tears when the Choctaw, Cherokee, Seminole Creek, and Chickasaw were removed by Andrew Jackson from Oklahoma across the Mississippi. My mother's people hid out with the Black people. They hid out. And then there was intermarriage then. Some of my mother's people, including my great whatever grandmother was, but in the plantation were, of course, 14, 15, 16, they were raped by the plantation owner. So I'm about 1/32 of some kind of European, but please don't tell anybody. And it shows up on 3 of us. There are my niece and my brother and I. And so my father would drive us all the way back to, so they recaptured land in there's 7 communities. My mother was born in Standing Pine. There's 7 communities, but no, quote, Indian reservation, because they somehow recovered themselves, and there are 7 communities. So that's one of the main places that I experienced racism, trying to go into the bathroom when it said whites only, and the Mississippi Choctaws could not go into Carthage or Philadelphia because we had to not be in, couldn't go to the movies or restaurants, have a haircut or buy groceries or anything. So I experienced it not being light enough for the white people and not being dark enough for the dark people, both with my own, in my own reservation where I grew up, and also with my mother's people. And my time is up for now.
Thank you, Grandmother Patricia. What's so valuable about this is as we listen to some of the stories about systemic racism, how does this paradigm that Grandmother Patricia has introduced to us, how is it different from the paradigm of punitive punishment? We're all sinners. The paradigm of the story of Ham, which Cynthia talked about last workshop, and how that justified racism. So as we start, hearing these stories and hearing these different paradigms, we start like reflecting in our heart, what kind of paradigm do we want to work with to go on from here? And what paradigm is in harmony with creating unity, justice, peace, love, and honoring of the earth? And maybe some of the things we've bought into about ourselves not being that great, not being a precious child of Creator, are not fitting into the new paradigm that we need to do, where we all bring our inherent sovereignty and power as a unique being of spirit that is honored equally in a circle together. So I will be passing to Kumbwa to talk about racism and different kinds of things that he might want to bring up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Grandmother Patricia. Thank you for all of you who are creating this space today. Thank you, Chise, for bringing the Spirit of Africa into the space, and all others who have done the same. Thank you for bringing Indigenous reality into this space. I appreciate that. Again, my name is Kumbwa Sauti, and I'm an initiated elder in the Dagara tradition from West Africa. I've been in higher ed for about 16, 17 years, doing some work now in spiritual work and work in social justice areas independently, and attempting to provide context for having conversations much like these about anti-racism, about anti-patriarchy, things like that. I am coming into this space in a particularly frustrated energy. And yes, because I'm affected deeply by things that I see happening in our anti-cultural mix. I tend to call it that because I don't see the United States culture or colonial culture as being something that grows things. I see it as something that destroys things. So I call it an anti-culture. I call patriarchy anti-culture. Just know that, but I come here frustrated. I come here with extra fire lit inside me, guided by my ancestors in the energy of Vun, of fire. I am witness to some of the wanton violence of this anti-culture of the United States settler colony that is expressed in ways like the white man who shot people in Highland Park, Illinois, yesterday. I am incensed by the duplicity of the permissiveness of governance, of media people, of so-called helpers and experts who do not speak to the core of not only the violence that we see in the hands of people with guns, but the violence we see in the hands of white men with guns, the violence we see in the racist violence of police. I just called to the spirit of our new ancestor, Jalen Walker, who was shot with 60 bullets very recently, out of the 90 bullets that were released in his direction. So I call these things into our awareness because they are up for me. They are all part of this system of racism, this system of intersectional patriarchy, of ableism, of heterosexism that seeks to destroy the ultimate human nature of people around the world. I have to call out the system of racism that began with its parent system of European colonialism that was given blessing and form by the Roman Catholic papal bulls in the 1400s. I have to say that because racism was born inside of that. When European men and women decided that they would invade other lands based on the doctrine of discovery, which said that any prince of Christianity could look upon a land if it was not Christian, they could subdue it, they could subjugate the people, this concept of terra nullius, if you were not Christian, you were not human. So they have from the beginning perceived that they were taking empty land and doing something with it for the greatness of their God and for the empowerment and economic strength of basically of European people. European people created the system of racism within that, not only to subjugate people because of the color of their skin, but because of the culture of their kin. It is a system that destroys Africanity. It is a system that destroys the nature and the balance and the beauty and the genius of indigenous cultures everywhere. It seeks to and has brought forth on this earth a society of usury, of exploitation, of rape of women and femme-presenting human beings as a weapon of war, Columbus's men did that in 1492. So that this dehumanization that comes along with this system of thinking and doing and of power is very much in effect right now. And one of the notes I wrote for myself, if I can find it now, is that it's just a question of, have European people who are benefiting from racism globally and in Europe. I know we mentioned that, this person from Europe was saying, wow, I'd never want to live in the United States. But we have to acknowledge that Europe is empowered because of its ability to rob Africa, to rob South America and North America. We have to know that. There's a reason why they say their cultures are so kind of advanced and things like that. And we can't go along with that propaganda because we know, due to the work of Eric Williams and other people, that Europe was defined and strengthened by chattel slavery on the land of indigenous people, stolen and exploited on North America, Turtle Island, and South America. So we have to see all the systems that we are using that are using us as African people and indigenous people around the world as being in these contexts of exploitation, of genocide, cultural genocide, which is genocide. If you take my culture, you take my life. If I cannot be an African on this earth, who can I be? Because I understand who my ancestors are. So even as we look at the United States Constitution, the settler colonial Constitution, we know that at the time of its inception, Africans were seen as 3/5 human being. And we would have to say that it was even less for African women, because we know that African women were experimented on to create what we call now the modern gynecological system. They were experimented on with no anesthesia. And we still have a medical system to this day. And again, I'm talking about systems, right? We still have a medical system today that undercuts and disbelieves and dismisses African women's even sense of pain and sense of their own body. We have a medical system that reveals greater maternal mortality of African women and indigenous women than any other women in this society. So we have to know that the systems that were created, and I'm going to say yes, in the 1400s, 500 years ago or so, are still in play because they have not been dealt with. They have not been fully engaged. And we know this because even the system of male violence, when you listen to CNN, when you listen to MSNBC, of course, when you listen to Fox, but when you listen to even local news, when you listen to other news services, when you go on the FBI website about gun violence, when you go on to other sites that talk about the violence of men, they do not mention men. They do not mention men. They mention women and others as the recipients of violence, but they do not mention men. I did this research recently, weeks ago. I didn't see men mentioned on the FBI violence statistics, that they're committing it. Even on some of the, anti-rape and sexual violence websites, men are not mentioned. So we're not doing that work to look at the source of these problems. We're not looking at this work to look at the source of, and I'm just going to say about that shooter in Highland Park, we're not looking at his maleness, even though they had a ton of information that they found out that he was talking about violence, had music videos, had all kinds of pictures and things like that, that mention his violence and school shootings and all kinds of gory things. When they looked at one of the pictures that he had online, they did not mention that he had an American flag behind him, along with his tactical military helmet, supposedly shot in a set-up classroom because he talked a lot about school shootings. The platforms, the social media platforms that we work with will shut you down because you mention racism and mention it seated in the anti-culture of white people on Turtle Island or elsewhere. They will shut you down in a minute. But he got to this white man got to explore all this and be violent and talk about all these kinds of things, and no one caught him. When the mayor of his town, who knew him as a Boy Scout, was talking about what happened to him between being a Boy Scout and being this terrorist, what she said was, I remember him as a little boy. Wow. He could keep his innocence in that moment. And what I'm hearing is not being talked about. And yes, I am talking about the intersection of maleness and of whiteness, of Europeanity, Europeanness on this continent that is not theirs. That we are not looking at what's happening to young white boys 8 to 18. No conversation is happening around that in the larger context. What is it about white men that we're protecting in the society when we know it is white men who are racist police who shot Jalen Parker just days ago with 60 bullets that hit him and another 30 that missed him? Okay, so this sense of the larger systemic concepts, and yes, when we go back to the 1400s and we think about history, and it's like, oh no, that's not me. But I also ask, why can we find a Christian church on just about every street corner in most towns? We think about New England, where I live, the land of the Massachusetts, the land of the Wampanoag, the Nipmuc have been here, the Pequot, and are still here. Let me just say that. Okay. But why is it that we can find those churches so much in this context? But we are disappearing the indigenous people of the land. And the Supreme Court just signed into their law the ability to take away their sovereignty even further. And I think we're done a great service if we look into the work of Vine Deloria Jr., who was a lawyer and an activist and a writer and an amazing writer. Look at the book God is Red. I suggest that to everybody who's attending. If you haven't read God is Red, please read the book God is Red. Okay? But to understand how this system, again, set up by Christian people, and there's a lot of talk about Christians around reproductive rights. And again, the United States Supreme Court did a disservice not only to all women, but to all of society by taking away rights that should be in the hands of women and those with a uterus. And yes, there's a lot of white women who are incensed at this time, and I'm just going to call that out. And they're saying, yes, we should burn it all down. And I have to speak up for African women who are like, where were you when we were in a situation of forced birth, of rape and forced birth on breeding farms? Where were you then? All right? If I don't say this, my ancestors will come at me. Okay? And I'm Water Clan, that's why I'm getting a little emotional right now. Okay? So we have to be able to look at the shadow, and we have to be able to look at that dark mirror even if we're in it. We can't look away from our own shadows. We can't look away from the pain, and oppressed people, African people, indigenous people have not been able to look away from our own pain and suffering. The systems will not allow it. If I go into a housing court like I did with my African lawyer with the locks on, and I hear the white judge start to treat him like a second-class citizen, immediately upon entering the room, we know that there's something systemically wrong there, especially when a white male judge will give 3 months of jail time. Actually, I think it was 6, but he only did 3 for Brock Turner, who was caught, white man who was committing a sexual assault, who had to be pulled off the body of his target, Chanel Miller. And thank you for talking about your situation, Chanel Miller. Got 3 months, walked away. And that judge was concerned about his prospects in life, not Chanel Miller. And we know women catch hell in the injustice system. African women catch hell in the injustice system. Black men And many Black women, African women cannot even get to the court system because racist cops are judge and jury. When I was stopped in Brookline, Massachusetts, while taking a walk at night by a cop, questioned about what I was doing, my anger level raised tremendously as one by one more cars showed up. It was back in the 80s. At the end of this, there were 9 cop cars there for me at a time when chokeholds were not illegal. I knew I might not walk away from that experience. So I had to keep my anger, my questions, my inquiry into their actions quiet, because I could have died that night. If I had moved my arms in a certain way, if I started to talk in a certain way, I could have died that night in the 80s. So when we think about this systemic racism, we need to know that, again, it's connected with intersectionally with patriarchy and other oppressions. And we need to know that, yes, even though this is a large concept, and I'm hearing lots of people, like post things online. I do a lot of work online. I do a lot of things there. And there have been these posts popping up and saying, we're fighting the system of racism, not white people. We are fighting the system of patriarchy, not men. And that doesn't sit well with me, because systems are run by people. Systems are run by people who have faces, who have profiles, who have names. At one point I started posting the pictures of the CEOs of certain boards of like Exxon or Shell, because I wanted people to see the faces of the people who are directly stealing land and destroying land in Ecuador, in Africa, in South America, in North America. The water protectors, the indigenous water protectors, and often working with African people, Black people in the States to stop the environmental racism. And can we talk about that, right? About where do these, pipelines show up? And we know the Dakota Access Pipeline was shifted from a predominantly white area to indigenous land. Right? 2016, am I right? Yep. So yeah, what is that about? So we have to be able to look in that dark mirror where our face is. And I say this as a man who benefits from patriarchy. I have to be able to look at myself, any person who is in a group that, yes, we can completely generalize is benefiting from racism or patriarchy. We can generalize, and I'll tell you why. Because oppression is a general dynamic. It chooses groups of people and it benefits groups of people, and that's why those CEOs and boards of directors that I, put in my Facebook album are mostly white and male, probably mostly heterosexual. Okay. So we have to be able to look at these. And like, Mari said, we have to be able to look into the eyes of our friends who are not directly like us, though we know we're all human, bleed red. The earth gives to us equally, but the oppressive systems take that and take more than they wish. That's why, we have African women dying in the numbers they are in the birthing rooms of hospitals. Why we don't have complete access to doulas and midwives like we should. That we have a school to prison pipeline. And I just want to mention very quickly before I do disagree with what David Wellman and the video said about racism. They left out a really important thing. They talked about the ideas that define racism, but they did not talk about the power that defines racism. And there's a reason why we're talking about that school to prison pipeline, because they have the power to take white men with guns and take African bodies out of the school and put them in prison. We have the power of a judge who has the power to say a thing and to have a bailiff and other cops who will come in and drag an African body into the jail or put them under the ground or to move indigenous people off their land without their consent, without their communal consent. So the power has to be looked at. And when we look at power, we have to look at who benefits from and who wields that power. When we do that, we will be looking into that darkness, into that mirror, into that smoky mirror. And for many of us who are in populations who have this privilege and power, men, heterosexual people, white people, European people, know that you have indigenous ancestors too, an indigenous culture. Decolonization happens in the process of finding that you're going to be in that mirror, and you have to be able to face that. And with that comes the healing and the decolonization and the world that we want to live with. But you have to get out of your own way, your own fear, your own lack of desire, your own laziness, indolence, all of those things. Arrogance, ignorance, and meet that face in the mirror head on. And with that, I pass back to the center. Thank you for your time. I appreciate your attention. Thank you, Mari.
Thank you, Akumba. It is true that we can kind of go on in our life and just kind of ignore things because we're so distracted. We have to pay the rent, we have to do this, we have to do that mortgage and this and that, and get swept up by the world as it is. Have we ever looked at how we remedy the world to bring it into harmony with natural order, bring it into harmony with unity, bring it into harmony instead of being swept up by this monster kind of that came in and basically started having its way with us, making taxes, and I'm not saying taxes are bad or not, because everybody needs to contribute to certain things. But so don't get caught up on the words, but on the heart of the matter here. Because there are some things that maybe aren't completely explained or given examples of as an example. But so the energy that comes and takes, the energy that took all the land from the natives, that put natives onto reservations. Do you know what the word reservation is? Thank you, Martin. Do you want to say, or I'll say it? The word we're going to have an etymology or whatever you call it, word definition every time from now on, because reservation means to keep apart and to segregate out and to not allow someone to have access. If you look up the actual definition of the word, so we use these words without seeing the energy and the programming behind them. And that's happened a lot in our English language, that sometimes things will change, but it has an energetic program associated with it that affects us subconsciously. And the other thing is, it is real true that some of these kids that have killed people that are white are let out because the judge did not want to disturb their life. Oh, let's not hurt that kid's life, he's just so young. Whereas a Black person would have been just put in the slammer forever. And what is it that allows us to kind of take our own interest and magnify it versus see everybody as part of our family? Why have we been indoctrinated into othering other people? How can we start pulling that belief system out of us? And the other thing was, let's see, what Kumba said, which was really powerful, and this happened to the coronavirus, is a lot of the vaccines were tried on African people as experimental guinea pigs. And these children, I saw videos of them, they're just in complete horrific, they're just like in such a bad way and so tortured with their new medical reality of being experimented on. And that did happen during slavery, where women were African American women, and probably even Native, I don't know that completely though, were experimented on so white people could have, they could have their gynecological different kinds of solutions, but also that happened in many ways. So, you know, they even made shoes out of Black people's skins. You don't even know the horror and the extremism of this. People used to come and watch massively. White people would come out for an afternoon of entertainment watching massive amounts of people lynched. And the kids would clap and they'd be all excited. We don't know that because we haven't been taught that in school, because we've watered it down. So we're not really looking at the reality, but also the culprit in it. Because if we don't look at the reality, we won't start to let all this stuff add up in our mind. But what happens to that energetically, it goes and it permeates our body subconsciously. Because when you have some sort of agreement on some level to either look away from this, perpetuate it, not let it bother you, then it comes in as a guilt and because subconsciously all life knows what's happening. And we really need to clear this out of ourselves on a cellular level. Look at the problem. Any kind of healer knows that you need to see the problem to diagnose it. And that's what Patricia's formula is. In an indigenous change process, you see the problem, you diagnose it, not so you can run energy and say, oh, let's multiply the problem and make it bigger and bigger. No, it's for taking it out and cleaning it. So yes, if you sit and you tell me your problem over and over and over with no interest in cleaning it up, you are multiplying the problem. But if you do it with an interest of healing and cleaning, you are making something get clean and you're freeing your consciousness from it. And that is indigenous ways and law. So let's be really clear about that. Just saying love, light, and bunny rabbits and having all this stuff, or just praying and not walking your talk, isn't going to cut it anymore. Because us as people, if we think that we as white people, I'm white, can just keep living in this and it's not going to come for us eventually, we're wrong. And we see that in rising prices. We see that we're having more and more trouble. And it's not love. To let your brother go down the tubes is not love. And then that means you have no safety basket. If something happens to you, you're dog meat. We're in this together. And if we don't have a safety basket and we know it subconsciously, what is that doing to us on a daily basis? We're getting so worked up inside, even if we don't notice it. It's an energy that we know nobody is here for us. Nobody cares. Maybe a few of our family, but if we go down the tubes, what's going to happen? Nobody cares. Do we want to live this way? Not me. I pass to Chise, and I love us all so much. I know that if we create this safety basket, if we create this good way to live, if we create a real system that is based on that we are all precious childs of Creator and we all have superpowers that we can help each other with, then we can be able to relax. I mean, deeply frickin' relax, you know? So I pass to Chise.
Thank you so much, Mari. And thank you so much, Ukumba, for that heartfelt, revelation that you brought forward. And thank you so much, Grandmother Patricia, for speaking to us about language. And that's kind of what I wanted to speak about today. I'm Olarisha Jise Ajay, and I have spent most of my time as my adult time as a teacher, Some of that time I've spent as a health educator, and a small portion of that time I spent working with, and I was trained by a Mongolian midwife. So I'm very clear about the impact of this system on women's health and on Black people's health in particular. I grew up walking around on Tongva Chumash land, and I've had a you know, for in my not quite 60 years, a unique experience, I feel, of growing up in the Southland, in the South Bay, Southwest United States, in a city that has the largest urban American Indian population, and that used to have, when I was born, 11 majority Black districts, as I told Mari, which now has a 0. And if you think that's an accident, I got swampland in, the Sahara to sell you. I think when we talk about systems, in the tradition of Neely Fuller, who was someone who really wrote a book on it, whenever somebody is coming to usurp the sovereignty of someone else, there are certain things that have to be done. There's certain things that have to be addressed. You address, and those things were addressed and have been addressed in the colonial process. You take control of housing, you take control of education, you take control of, general power. The criminal justice system says, these are going to be the judges, and these people are going to decide who's free, who's not free, where people can go, what they can do, how the system is going to run. You take control of the narrative. In this case, at the point we're in history, you take control of media. Goebbels under Hitler. You take control of media. This allows for you to have Kristallnacht, You take control of spirituality and sexuality. And these are some of the things that I want to talk about. I had a very beautiful discussion this week with Martin. And during that discussion, we talked about why I'm not married. I've had the great good fortune to have some very, very beautiful relationships with some amazing men who happen to be, who were also Black. But when I started talking about that, it wasn't planned. I just said, I've put 3 kings and 1 Superman in the ground, and all of them at or before 60. And how this gets to the whole systemic racism is, I understand that the reason all of them are not here right now is hinged upon the effects of racism on health, education, general wellness, and sexuality. The whole point of in any system that's being established to control or move people in any direction, either to the boarding school or to college or what have you. In this situation, speaking specifically, it's about an interruption of a conversation. There will only be one culture, it will be white culture. We will interrupt the conversation, between you and your culture if it is not the general white culture. And the way that conversation will be interrupted, if you're Native American, we're going to take you and we're going to put you in boarding school. If you're Black, we're going to take the children out of the home, we're going to put them in jail. If you're Mexican, we're going to take the parents out the home and put them in the field, depending on, what class you happen to belong to. If you're urban or rural. But the point is to interrupt the conversation, because culture, the crux of culture is memory. And if there is no memory, culture dies. people have to be in control of their own narrative to pass culture. How you interrupt this is you either tear apart the family or you keep the family from forming. The best way to interrupt a conversation is to kill somebody. Or at least that's what the powers that be seem to think. Because I've put 4 men in the ground who will not talk to their grandchildren, who have no conversation anymore for their children, you know, such as it is, who had a lot to bring to their larger community. And I am not unique, you know. I don't feel like I'm singled out for persecution. You know, there are a lot of people, and that's why we're here having this conversation, that have been through similar circumstances, who have been through, you know, similar injustices, so to speak. This young brother that Ukumbwa was talking about may or may not have children, but he no longer has conversation for them. There's no, that passing on, you know, of language and ideology and culture has been stopped. And I think one of the most revolutionary things that we are doing here is using language to pinpoint, you know, what is going on, to look into, as Ukumbwa talks about, the dark mirror, you know, to use the smoking mirror and say, okay, look, you know, you can't really get the medicine if you don't name the disease. If you don't name the danger, you cannot cross the river. This is where we are living now in the first part of the 21st century. And Black people came out of slavery with a 0.5%, you know, of the wealth that white people have, and we still have 0.5%. And I'm speaking that to that as a Black woman who comes out of, you know, a fully African tradition on one side, and, you know, also out of the Western band of the Seminole Nation that has 2 bands that are exclusively Black. Because we fought for our liberty under the banner of the Seminole Nation. And it seemed a natural thing for us to join with people who also loved the earth, who shared our values. You know, the conversation that was brought, that landed with the priests and with the guns of Europe, is a conversation in which the very earth is indicted. The very earth is disrespected. And if I don't say anything else, I want to say this: language and narrative is important, and it's important to wrest the narrative from people who are divisive and who are misbehaving, not only with other human beings, but with the earth itself. We are not liberated until the earth itself is liberated, because we as indigenous people understand that that is our primal and primordial connection. So as long as the earth, show me some place where the earth is being disrespected, and I will show you a place where women or red-haired people, or go down the list, disabled people, however you want to call it, are not being respected. There is no way to disrespect the earth and disrespect the water and disrespect fire and disrespect any of the primordial elements that are part of our human commons, and have a respectful society. And when you lose respect, you lose all of the social contract. It dies, and it dies in your hand. It dies in your court systems, and it leads to a kind of derision that the longer it lasts, it snowballs, and it snowballs until there is social implosion. It is the way Rome died. Implosion. You expand, you become a spider, you take everything over, you don't listen to anybody, you just roll over people and absorb people and say it's our way or the highway, and you become Borg. We will add your distinctiveness to our own. You usurp people's identities. And then what happens? You lose your republic. You know, you devolve because the corruption from within seeps into the foundation and you end up in an implosion. I wanted to say a special thanks to Grandmother Patricia for really speaking to the language and how language impacts us. One of the key things that I have noticed is when we tend to talk about a lot of the more difficult issues, and Ukumba also brought this up, it's what's not being said. Two things happen. It's what's not being said that we need to really hone our ears to. And the other thing is, I noticed the use of the passive voice. Racism has caused blah, 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 blah. Instead of white people have caused. White people invented and brought racism. Nobody wants to say this. You know, I am saying this, you know, as somebody uniquely American, you know what I'm saying, with you know, not just African tribal affiliation, but with Native tribal affiliation. And of course, you know, we can't leave out the rapists in the background, okay? This passive voice, this I collect the check, but I don't take responsibility, is going to be the end of America. If you collected the check, don't tell me, you know, mankind has destroyed the world. Mankind hasn't destroyed the world. I didn't get the check. Who got the check? Can you talk to Mr. Rockefeller, Mr. Vanderbilt, Mr. Morgan, and Mr. Chase and their descendants? Because I'm going to say this: everybody's descendants don't agree with them. You know, some people wake up and say, I didn't inherit all this money from what? From who? There are people out there working and doing work. I can't think of this young brother's name right now, this Jewish brother named, his first name is Aaron. But I do know that there was a fatwa put out on him for interrupting the female slave trade around the world, because what he does is he goes around physically liberating young girls who have been stolen and put into brothels. You know, it must be nice. You often hear people say it must be nice to be wealthy. This is one of the things that he has decided to do with his wealth. And for those of us who don't know what a fatwa is, it's a death, it's an Islamic death order, because certain people, you know, in the Islamic world who are not practicing their Islam according to, you know, honorable law, are involved in a worldwide slave trade among young girls and women. So for this reason, this young white man has a fatwa put out on him. I think if we spit out the use of the passive voice, we begin to move forward. You have to move forward in language to move forward in culture. I like to always, I think when we are talking about looking at real change and systemic change, we have to have a method for the change. You know, there's a lot of, I can say this as a Black woman growing up. You know, slavery was hundreds of years ago. Why don't you get over it? People are really quick to tell you how to get over something without telling you how. And what I'm speaking of is the hows. there will be a change in language. There has to be. We move from the passive to the active voice. And part of that is taking responsibility. I feel ... I know ... I will do ... That passive voice or that silencing, a lot of what we heard when these shooter situations started to happen tens of years ago now was, well, there's no profile for this. There's you know, this kind of thing happens. Like, everybody was clutching the pearls, talking about as, oh, they were shocked. How could this be? No profile. You don't know. It could be anybody. No. Let me tell you who this guy is. He's a white male between 15 and 35. That's who he is. If we start counting and crunching numbers, that's who he is. Okay. So can we talk about why white males between 15 and 35, or maybe even 45, if you want to go all the way to Las Vegas, are so upset while the rest of us have the state's foot on our necks? Why are white men so bent out of shape? You know, I think one of the things that's really important here, aside from moving away from the passive voice, is to understand the nature of memory and how memory creates culture, and how culture is housed in how you build and conduct your house, how you tend to your health, how you express your spirituality, and also how you or if you are able to express your sexuality. The best way to keep people in check is to cut off the conversation that they have with other people and amongst themselves. Hence, you see in the 60s, the quote unquote generation gap, as though teenagers and elders are not supposed to be able to hold a conversation. I am grateful. I have a 24-year-old daughter who calls me every day. Because I like to believe it's because of the way I raised her, and because we have a good dialogue, and also because I'm at a particular phase of parenting, because within the African community and African traditional religions, you are not a true adult until you pass Saturn's first return at 28, between 28 and 30 years old. So I'm still raising my 24-year-old. It's just a different phase of parenting. That conversation has not been interrupted because I have been able to stay alive and to stay healthy. But all of the different facets of human life enter into our systemic wholeness, and they are all impacted by racism and the lawlessness of the, what do you want to call it? The state that has, what is it? The doctrine of discovery state. You know, this lawless, you know, quote unquote civilization that has been brought to Turtle Island. Every aspect of our lives that is part of culture. As I said, housing, education, law, media. I would encourage people, whoever we are, to take control of their narrative. So those two things: take control of the language, take control of the narrative. It will give you control of all of these other aspects of your life. And that is the how. I'm speaking to the how we get over it. That's the beginning. And I hope I've been able to offer what I believe is some insight into how that. And I will pass to the center of how that should go. Thank you so much for this opportunity, all of you.
Thank you, Chisei. Yeah, that's, you know, as we look at this, the more we can find examples of what we are talking about. So you have the aha as an example, taking over the housing narrative. So instead of being able to make straw bale houses and rainwater catchments and we have the promotion of the lawn. We have the promotion of not having vegetable gardens in our yards, so we can't eat off of it. Instead, then we rely on the system to do all these things and bring us groceries. So we're not sovereign. We're not self. If the shit hit the fan, excuse me, what would we eat? You know, we're not able to do different things because we've been taken out of process. And you know, so that's just one of the examples of, and along with the housing has been relegated in Los Angeles and most places that you have to follow housing laws, and those housing laws keep millionaire houses being built instead of affordable housing, where we could build it with straw bales and different things that are still safe. But because there is a want to keep control over the industry, then we can't have alternatives that would be earth friendly, where you use the materials that are right there with you. So these are examples that I'm giving you so you can understand what we're talking about, instead of like a theoretical idea in the mind, how this translates into this kind of beast that won't let us out of its clutches, you know, with the lending, like Patricia said, the loans and mortgages and getting, having to pay for years on end on something to keep you exhausted to the hilt, and you can't have these alternative housings, and you can't catch rainwater, and you can't make something that's friendly to the earth. This is an anathema to the earth. And it's and the 5G, do we need 5G and 6G and 7G and 8G? I mean, 3G was enough, and we lost our abilities to communicate telepathically. If we go all the way down the road. So what are we losing in some of this? Is it really important to have virtual reality and then just get immersed in this and then not have conversations with people and lose those abilities of union, of communication, and I love what you were talking about also with people not having conversations with elders and youth, and this generation gap idea that was spread, rather than having the elder people stuff them in an old folks home, and so they're not part of the conversation. So we lose our eldership also, and then elders start even not becoming elders because they forget that they have wisdom and that they have all these capabilities to pass down. And so they just kind of sit and stare at a tube, you know. We have lost so much in this idea that we're getting something great happening with all this technology and stuff. Are we happy? That's the bottom line. Are we really fulfilled in this? Okay, I want to pass to the next person. Let's see. I'm trying to remember who's here in the room right now. Martin, would you like to say anything, or Michael, who would like to come forward?
I'll say something just relatively short. Just something that I'm playing around with. This is sort of an anniversary for me. 2 years ago, I'm Martin Diggs. I'm in Kansas City, Kansas, on the land of Kinzaw Indians, Wyandot, and so many that migrated through. Kinzaw were the last Indians to stand in this, and I am of Choctaw heritage as well, Patricia, so I appreciate those connections. Seem to keep coming more and more to me every day, as each circle I sit in seems to be somebody else is showing up, Choctaw. And that's sort of what I want to talk about, is what I have learned in the past 2 years, finding community online, and COVID helped foster all of that for sure. And for that, for me, I am grateful. For me, it brought a great deal of healing and restructuring of myself and the way I thought. Whereas in the past, I have gotten little breadcrumbs and nuggets here and there. I wanted to reach in and fully understand where my spirituality could actually go. And I remember this, it's completely in my brain. A moment when I was a child and probably had a rough time at school or what have you. I was always in most of the schools that I went to here in Kansas were maybe at most 17% minority and even less than that, Black, of course. And I remember this moment where I was laying between my bed and my window and I was writing or drawing as I usually did. And I remember just thinking about, there has to be more to it than this. And what I was talking about was this place, this planet, and this is what we choose to do: build roads, build homes, sell watches, sell cars, etc., as opposed to actually coming into being. I didn't know this at the time. This is what I'm understanding now. Coming into being with nature, the elements, and the ancestors. So last year, while I was learning and discovering and sitting with many indigenous people, I was fascinated by a conversation people were having about relationship with the water. And I was naive at a point, and I asked the question, so how do I develop a relationship with water? And one woman simply said to me, she said, just ask. And I went to the water, and someone counseled me to, put your hands in the water, say a little prayer, give a little blessing, put your hands in the water. I did that. I'd had a spot that I'd been going to for a while, Wyandotte County Lake, named after some of the indigenous people in our area. And I remember getting on my knees and doing a little blessing and ceremony. And I put my hands in the water. And at the time that I put my hands in the water, I realized I was putting my hands in the sky. That was the moment that came over me. And are you telling me that as a people, this is about connection, this is about receiving vibrations, this is about being open to all of the possibilities of what this place can actually offer us, and you would rather have the iWatch 7 or whatever it is than actually, they're turning off these connectors. Okay, I go in public and I can see the people that are it's just shut off. They don't want to feel all the connections. They don't know. We're talking about relationships with people, and I'm now talking about relationships with the tree that I have right outside my window here. And having a conversation with that tree. So I am hopeful that we get to the other side of that river. And I, pray mercilessly for the people that don't understand that they are duped as much by racism and sexism and all the isms as the people that feel it the most. They don't understand how these thoughts got in their head. They don't even, I don't know, most of them don't even take time to consider how did I grow up to decide that I don't like homosexuals or black people or whatever. They don't even think about that. I don't know. I will pass back to the center, Mari.
Thank you so much, Martin. Yeah, this is definitely food for pause. What do I take for granted within my belief system that may or may not be true, maybe just put there? And what is it that is put there? And then do I want to keep going on with that? Is that really the nature of true interconnectedness and reality? Yeah. That's what we're doing here. We're going to be, as we go on in other workshops, we're going to be exploring deeper and deeper into those kinds of things and really taking some of the patterns out of the body that have been subconsciously put there by society, people we've been around. You know, even if we don't think it, you know, oh, my parents were racist. Mine weren't really, but like my parents were racist, but I'm kind of going against the stream. But there's, if we don't see that we're still immersed in this situation, we're still perpetuating it. We're going along with it. And Patricia calls that coping, because we don't know what else we can do, what the other alternatives are. And so we keep coping and coping and coping, but that coping is making us complicit. And then just stopping, hey, what is this? What is the tree? Not the tree is this, the tree is this. Can I open up my heart and mindset to actually inquire and find out, to have that experience like you're talking about, Martin? That is so deep. The presence of being in present, rather than what Patricia talks about with, and she didn't mention it here, but the linguistic, the creation of past and future energetically that keeps us still spiraling towards a goal. Now, I'm not saying that this isn't a goal, but the presence of being that present can be a birthing ground for some of this unfurling. So I'd like to bring Michael into the conversation with his personal experience, and then later with nonviolent communication. Michael, I'd like to pass to you if you would like to comment on anything in systemic racism, or whether you would want to go into nonviolent communication right now. But I'd like to hear your experience also.
Yeah, I really appreciate being here. I learned so much from the people who are speaking, and I'm taking a lot of notes. We talk about needs, and I'll go here for a second. I've been a probation officer for 21 years. I've talked to thousands and thousands of people in the judicial system, juvenile hall. I've heard the stories, and I use the NVC with these kids and my clients, but I'll talk about that later. But what I want to say is that these stories and this history that, and I'm going to work on the names, Ukumbwa, correct? Yes. And Tishe, there we go. Though, you know, and those stories and the history behind where things come from really resonate with me. Because when you ask a human being, so where'd you learn that? And they say, I don't know. I go, what if you did know? And then here it comes, and it starts coming out. So, you know, we talked the other day about, you know, empires. We talked about empires and how long they last. You know, the medievals, and, you know, the Genghis Khans and the English Empire for 364 years, Genghis for maybe 800, whatever the years are. But things only last for a period of time. And like Tisha said, you know, you're gonna get cocky. you're gonna start believing, you're gonna start smelling yourself. You're not gonna listen, and one day it's gonna crumble. And if you look at America, you know, I see that now. You know, we have this we are the best country in the world. You know, our way is the only way. And what do Europeans think of us? They think we're those Americans, those damn conceited Americans. You know, and people from other countries. And what I've noticed is that if we keep going in this direction, we're doing this number, and we're going to say in the history books, well, America only lasted for 235 years, or whatever the case may be, not the thousands of years that maybe the Roman Empire. And where does this come from? Well, and how does this play in racism? Well, the people at the top love where they were. They reap the benefits over the years of slavery and all these ways of keeping other people, customs, cultures down. And guess what? We win. Well, what's happening is we are progressing as a country. There are more women in law school, more women in med school, more women in all kinds of schools. Women are doing their thing. The men are backsliding. So the men, and there's an economist from New York City or NYU who stated in about a decade, we're going to have a bunch of angry ass white men who are going to do some, you got to be aware of. Because what is their role? Women are becoming accomplished. And because I like accomplished women, I'm not having a problem, but some may have that. And when you are a white male, there's a certain element of success you need to have. And what if that's not reached? Who am I and how do I fit into society? Because as you know, Martin Luther King was always talking about, civil rights, but he's also talking to the poor whites of America. And he tried to bring them along. Well, because their whole thing was, well, who's worse than that? We'll call it, who's worse? I need to be better than a black man. I need to be better. So if they keep succeeding, then who am I and where do I fit in? And this is what's actually kind of what's showing up now. Other races are growing and doing their thing and improving, and the wave is shifting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you. I'm going to read some stats I looked up today. I said, the white population dropped 8% in 2010. Okay, the black, white, Hispanic, Asian, the mixed. Now we're talking about mixing of America. The browning of America went up 276%. Okay. Hispanic population jumped up 23% in 2010. Asian 4.3 in 2010. Other races 129%. So right there, it is the wave. It's shrinking, and a certain group is doing this. When you've had your way of thinking your whole life after generation, it's like it's got to be a really uncomfortable way of looking at the world, going, oh my God, this is really happening. So there's fear involved. There are laws that are passed. There are things we need to do to keep it where it was, because I kind of, those people in power really enjoyed it. And we talked about the idea of what is the definition of racism, right? And people have this whole convoluted, they have their way of thinking. What I remember reading is this: it's the economic ability of one group to hold another group down. The economic ability, think about that. And we talk about the systems that we talked about before. We talk about the educational systems, right? And and the ones I can't remember, but all these systems, if I have the economic ability, I have the power, I'm in a power position, I can make decisions to do what I need to do, or we need to do to keep this group where they are so they don't move. And because we are, now that we're getting, I tell you, if it wasn't for George Floyd, I don't know where we'd be, but that needed to happen. And to be personal, since we're in a personal, I call him my Black Jesus. I do. I said, dude, he sacrificed. If it wasn't for that moment where this guy believed that I'm better than you and you're nothing to me, and they didn't get it on camera, we wouldn't, that whole message would not have gone across the whole world about, wow, that's what they do to people in America. Is that what they do? Yes. And that history lesson you taught me that the last slave was in 1942, the technical slave was 1940. I was like, because people are always wondering, in Europe, they're going, well, if you guys are saving the Jews from the Nazis, what are you teaching the black population of your country like that? What is this thing we talk about, and justice for all? So that to say, we are changing, and a lot of people are scared, and so everybody's doing that group is doing what they need to do to slow it down. But I'm thinking of, my whole thing is this is an iceberg, and it's coming down that mountain. It may be slow, but it's coming, and you're not going to stop it, because no one's leaving anywhere. No one's going anywhere. We are going to be here. They're going to be mixing and matching and all these things, and more population, and things are going to happen. And in another 100 years or so, America is going to be what color, what shade of brown, what percentage. And we have to come to the acceptance that one day we are one people. We're one people. And we're willing to share that piece of the pie, or the whole dang pie, shoot. Why not bring everybody up as opposed to keeping certain groups down? And that's where we have to get to the idea of, something? Why can't everybody have a piece of the pie to enjoy their life and share their love and share their beliefs, and not criticize and shame and blame everyone? So that's what I see, and the stories that were told today, I resonate, and I use that to inspire me. So my need for inspiration, contribution, vision, and dreams are being met as we speak. Thank you.
Lovely. The change is coming. And if we hold off, people might be rattling the cage at the bottom and break it down. So how can we do what's loving? How can we be that love? And Michael's going to be also helping us at this point walk through a little bit of understanding in nonviolent communication, where we can start bridging the gap. We can have empathy for ourselves in what we're going through, right. Have empathy for others that have kind of swallowed different kinds of ideas on their reality and not opened it up, and also have express ourselves in a way that engenders more understanding and peace. Because if we could truly open this up where all needs are met, and I'm not talking about the need for a gold toilet seat as an example, and to put myself on a mountain and everybody else suffer, and everybody, that's not really a need. It's a response to an ideology. It's a response to wanting to look good, or feel good about yourself, and not having the tools to know what truly feeling good about yourself is. And it's a response to upholding a power structure you've been involved in for a while, or this whole thing of become a big tele-evangelist, or become a big workshop creator and go to the top and make tons and millions and billions, and not looking at the fact that our society and the way we're approaching it is the rotten egg. So when you're trying to just achieve within a structure, Krishnamurti says that it's not healthy to embrace a rotten structure. That's coping. That's becoming a millionaire so you can cope within a situation, so you don't have to undergo all the stuff that's happening at the bottom. But it's not taking care of the problem. So we're going to start this conversation with Michael about how to start looking at your needs, how to start looking at others' needs, how to look at conversation, and how to have it to open hearts. And I'm going to let him address any part of that he feels that comes up for him. And maybe I'll interject, or a few of us might, but we'll see where we go with it. And we might have people from the audience come in. We'll see. But I'm going to just see where Michael goes, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'll take the help anywhere I can get. I want everybody to win. So, whatever we can contribute. One of the things I do is we talk about needs, okay? We talk about nonviolent communication, but let me chop it up a little. Most people don't know what a need is that I've encountered. What's a need? They don't know. So here's my definition of a need. My need is a desired social or emotional outcome an individual tries to acquire through social interaction with others in a given situation. So in other words, everything we do on this planet is to meet our need. Keep it simple. Our need right now is to contribute to the planet. So your need for contribution. Our need for understanding. So there's a need, okay? When those needs are met, we are all inspired, we're happy, joyful, all the fun stuff on that side. If our needs are not met, then we become angry, hostile, aggravated, etc. So I'm breaking it. So that's what a need is. So we right now are meeting our need for information. We're meeting our need for contribution. Okay. So that's what. So that'll help you, give you a foundation. So how does this apply? Think of this racism and think of it as a dysfunctional family. We have to admit certain people in our family are doing horrible things. Some people don't want to admit that. So how do we get them to see that this is what's really going on? To have acceptance around the situation. And then this racism situation, we need acceptance around it, that it is happening, and what can we do to change it? Okay, without beating ourselves up for allowing this to happen or knowing that it's happened and not doing anything about it. When I work with people who were touched by a family member inappropriately, I had to get them to understand where that toucher was coming from. So they can also, that's why that, yeah, think about what they're going through in order for them to do what they did. Think of the person who has a racist component or belief system that is so strong. Think about where that comes from. Then think about what needs are being met for them in order for them to continue. Does that make sense? To continue. Always remember, you're getting something out of it. Otherwise, we don't do it. Now, so in nonviolent communication, that's the observation. The observation is, I believe certain people are blank. That's what they say. I believe that these people are worthless. I believe that the Black people are this. I believe that Native Americans are this. That's a belief, so that's an observation. The feeling you could get from that is what? If we're talking about negative feelings, we could get the feeling of anger, sadness, helplessness, gloom, grief, right? You can pound it on. Because remember, emotions are the indicator light of what you interpret. Because I see that happen, because they said something or did something, this emotion shows up. So now we know where it came from. Now what we need to do is understand the need that is being met or not met because of what was observed. Okay, what need was met or not met on what you saw or heard. You ask yourself, well, my need for, we'll talk about racism, my need for respect, my need for understanding, my need for information, and we can go on and on, whatever that is. And here's the thing, here's the other thing, you can always, you throw the needs out there because most people don't know what they are. If they resonate, they'll say yes, that's the need. Okay. Then the fourth component is, well, how do we change it? Well, we make requests. How can we get you to change the belief system that you've had for so many years by still allowing you, to be the empowered person you want to be? Because if they're empowered, having a certain belief system by certain people or certain ways, that gives them power, tragically. That gives them self-worth, tragically, right? How can we have them come to peace with being okay with other people being empowered? So we make a request on what they can do to change, right? So that is a basic, fundamental look at how nonviolent communication can work in this environment of racism. Okay. Now, hopefully that's not that clear as mud. Any questions?
So what I'm hearing you say is, let's say someone has a power structure and they want to feel empowered, and everybody wants to feel empowered,
Right.
But by holding other people down,
Yes.
And we make a request, well, I would like something too. In nonviolent communication,
right.
But we do it in a way that allows them to continue being empowered, but to clear their belief system about what empowerment truly is. It will eventually change it because they'll start wanting to listen to you if you listen to them. and they'll start wanting to open up to the possibilities possibly of different power structures.
Realizing that they're in power was holding, they may not, I call it the walking dead. They're so into what you do that you don't think about others. So their power structure is so subconscious, right? That they're just doing what they do. You bring it up to their attention and go, wow, you know, other people would like what you have, you know, a piece of that pie. You know, my request is, would you be willing to allow us to do what it takes to get to this point so we can have what you have, so we can share?
Yes, that's an example of it for sure.
Right, that's an example. Here's the problem. These people like it so much, what if they don't want to?
Yes.
That's where we're gonna, that's the boom, 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 right?
Mhm.
If they're willing to look and see how they have benefited and how they have hurt, or, you know, what's the marginalized others, and be honest with how that has played out over the years, and they're open hearted and go, you know something, I want to do something different. I want to do something different. And that person has to really be egoless, egocentricist, all that others, those ego things that make them powerful, and go, you know something, why not share? But it has to come from that place that we talk about.
Yes, and then it leads to a redefinition of what power is.
Yes, the redefinition.
Maybe we could like give an example if we like play something out. I don't know.
Well, so if you do an example of it,
Yeah.
what is that? What is the, here's step number one. What is the other person doing or saying? So give an example of what the person does or says that you see and affects you, impacts you.
So somebody like a judge wanting, oh boy, I don't know, this is hard. How about if I role play with you, sort of?
Okay, so
like I'll be the person that doesn't want to let go of something.
all right, you're the person doesn't want to let go. So I go like this. So Mari, you know, I see that you still believe that, you know, that most crime are attributed to Black people. Or do you think Black people have this innate, you know, instinct or socialization that they just do crime?
Everybody knows that, Michael, because there's more Black people in prison. Right. Yeah, we hear about it all the time, and it's really obvious that that's what's happening.
Right. So when I hear that, right, when I hear you say that, you know, I get upset, I get frustrated, and I get angry. So I'm needing, right? I'm needing truth. Mm-hmm. I'm needing information, right? I'm needing maybe vision about how you can look at that situation differently.
Well, how can I look at it differently if I see these as these facts that have been presented to me over the news? And, you know, it's really hard to look differently at this situation when it's obvious that this is happening, that it is mostly Black people and they are more crime oriented. So
what I'm hearing is that you only look at one news source that gives you the information. And that one news source impacts your belief system. So if I were to ask you how many belief systems do you have about certain situations, what would you tell me?
Well, I'd say that I probably have mostly one.
Yeah. So where do you think that belief system comes from?
Well, I hear it on the news, and my parents told me that sort of thing was happening. And I've noticed in my life that, you know, a lot of times the Black people were being brought into the principal's office or whatever.
So you saw a person being brought in, but you didn't understand the motives behind them being brought in. Okay. So what did you do when you saw that Black person? What did you assume or create in your mind?
I assumed that they were just making trouble again, like they always do, and that that they're, you know, just taking down this society, and that they're always causing trouble, and they're always kind of bucking the system. And
So that, I see, that's a strong belief system. So when a Black person gets dragged into the office, they are the troublemakers. And do you believe any other culture causes trouble?
oh, sure, of course, but you know,
And how is that presented to you?
in what way can you?
Well, when other cultures or other ethnic groups get in trouble, what is your perception of that? What is your belief around that? Why do they get in trouble?
I don't know. I mean, you know, kids will be kids.
So the people who are non-white will be kids, but if a Black kid gets in trouble, their getting into trouble is perpetuating a different idea about them being troublemakers. Okay, so where do you think this comes from? Where did you learn this?
Well, I learned it from watching the news and
Yeah.
my parents.
And does the news give you 100% of all the facts?
Well, I'd like to believe it for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm sure it can't always, it's not always 100%.
What did you learn in your American history about the Black history, a Black experience?
That, well, there was slavery, and then it just kind of got abolished by legislation, and it really, and then, you know, now everybody has equal rights.
Yeah, you know, on paper that'd be nice, huh? On paper is nice, but the human being, how do they respond to the new law, to changes of the law? Just because I get married doesn't mean I'm going to cheat on my wife because I cite a marriage certificate. I'm going to be honest with her forever and ever.
Yeah.
We can change, right? So I want you to have some empathy around the Black student. How many are there in your school?
Oh, like 7.
7 out of how many students?
1,200.
Right. And who do they get to relate to?
Well,
Each
other, I guess.
Yeah, and how often do they see each other, right, for different classes? Now, imagine them walking down the hall being the only person of color, and what they may hear on a constant level in the bathroom, slipping a note, cat calls from behind. Think about that.
Yeah.
So guess what? Think about what they're trying to do every day in school. And what is that?
Well, I'm sure they just want to be like.
Yeah, they want to be, but what are they fighting every day?
Yeah. They're fighting all those people talking.
Right. So
their back.
What do you think they're needing? So we talk about needs. Let's go what they're needing. Let's talk about their need for, you know, self-empowerment, right? Their need for support, their need to be heard. You know, is the principal going to listen to their situation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I would want to not be heard. Yeah. I can understand that.
Yeah. So when you look at a microcosm of what's happening in the big scheme of things, just one person going through this experience. So think about their needs, right? Think about what they're going through in order to fulfill them. Okay. And since this situation is about you, what you saw as a Black person going in, your emotions were what? Sad, angry, maybe frustrated. Black people are troublemakers.
Yeah.
That's the line.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the line. You're feeling your emotions come up with what? You're frustrated. You're angry because they can't get it together.
Yeah.
Right. So what are you needing? You're needing for what? Understanding.
Yeah.
That Black person.
Also, you know, safety and just
safety.
Feeling like I get it. You know.
Yeah.
It's like I need to feel like I'm safe.
Yeah. So, okay. So there's safety, physical safety. That's your need, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe need for information. You only saw them being dragged in the office. There's more to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what else do you think you're needing from that situation? How about some understanding from what they're going through, right? Yeah. So what would your request be to get a better handle on how you see that situation?
Oh my God.
What would you like to see happen?
I guess my request happens to be for myself, but this is
Yeah, no, it is. That's right. It is for yourself. That's exactly right. What is your request?
I'm kind of requesting myself to maybe look a little deeper into a situation.
Yeah, thank you. There you go. There you go. Right. Don't judge it because of what you see. Therefore, he goes in. They're all troublemakers. Now you go, you know something? What really happened? Because I live that. I go to chemistry class. The N-word flies. I'm bing, boom, boom, bloody nose. I whooped his ass. Go to the principal's office. You know, and what happened? Well, Mr. Vice Principal, this is what happened. Well, you go back to class. Boom. This was regular for me. This was me in my school. Stuff on the bathroom, stuff on the walls, all the stuff. Okay. So your experiences, wow, are they all like that? Of course not. But because of your belief systems, values, what you learned on that dinner table, bringing it to school, to the big world, right?
Yeah.
Now God, they're all troublemakers. But now watch this. You open up and you saw, you know, something's got to be more to it than that. What's going on inside me about that situation?
Yes.
I need more information. You know, I need more empathy for him, you know, and I need more clarity, right? And that's what you're requesting, right? To see what really happened. So we can't just pigeonhole that individual for being hauled into the office.
Yeah. I think that what you've just summed it up, that looking from that perspective and seeing that in any prejudicial situation, you're projecting an idea, and there hasn't been the connection between people to really hear the heart of that person. And when you're not hearing that, then there's no relationship established. So it's the paradigm of colonialism and the paradigm of this separation is in itself creating this lack of connection between all that is. And so I'll have an idea about the environment. I'll have an idea about other people. I'll project it. And it's almost like I'm projecting my own picture or my own fears, my own prejudices out there. Yes. And then I'm seeing the world and I'm creating it all around me. And, and instead of having true interdependence or relationship with the actual people I'm projecting to. And so, go ahead, Mike.
Beautiful. Here's what I inform people. Unplug from that situation, take a step back, slow it down, and do what we just did. It's like when I tell a parent when their kid's having a tantrum, let them have the tantrum. Because that's their tantrum. Not yours. You have to plug in. Oh, shut up. Be careful. It'll be good. It'll be okay. No, that's their tantrum. Ask them the same thing. So what are you needing there, young person? What's going on inside you that make you behave this way? So trust me, these kids, they know the deal. And that's the same thing in the adult world.
And what I'm hearing in that also is even by asking, it's giving the other person consideration and deference and it's telling them, I care about you and I really want to see you instead of see my projections.
Yes. Yes.
Can I just interrupt here?
Please.
And ask some questions, because as somebody who's been physically assaulted. So I'm what I think I'm hearing is to look at what try to get the other person's point of view.
Right.
At what point is this happening? Because my question is, for instance, in the situation I described last week,
Right.
I'm a child, an adult puts his hands on me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not looking for his point of view.
Right.
I'm holding an ass whooping is what I'm
Exactly.
doing. Okay. You know,
Hell
you know
yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yes.
I don't care what he's thinking.
Right.
You know, because he needs to take his hands off of me and other parts of his body. So, you know, from the altitude of age,
Right. There we go.
I can say, yeah, there were probably some problems there. But even in that situation, I was clear. Anybody finding out about it, that I was going to be the problem.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Even though this is a grown man who is in authority,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I was conscious enough
Mm-hmm.
and coordinated enough while the, you know, privilege adjustment, you know, therapy was going on that I was conscious not to leave any blood or bruises where anybody could see.
Mm-hmm.
But I was also conscious that I didn't want to have to do this again,
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't want to have to I needed to deal with this situation in a way that this person would never dream of putting their hands on me again.
Right.
You know, it didn't occur to me, as I said, to think about his point of view and try to get an understanding it at that moment. And of course, later on, I wasn't trying to do that, you know, either. I was trying to survive in a situation,
Right.
you know, where this person had the full advantage and the full, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What I'm looking for is where nonviolent community, because I would, you know, my response was not nonviolent. He was on crutches by the time I got finished with him for months.
In that situation, you are to protect yourself in any way possible. So don't think nonviolent is where you gotta, oh, here. No. You do that, you do what you need to do. That's called you meeting your need for physical protection.
Right.
And that's what you needed to do.
I'm trying to take it to the next step.
Okay. So
let's say now.
So you did your thing. We get that, protected yourself.
Yeah. Now he's hobbling around on crutches and I'm going to class.
So
now
let's back it up.
Okay.
Back it up.
Okay.
Now we're kind of, okay. And now we can do like a, you know, we can do like a, what do you call it?
Yeah.
You know, what is that? We're watching film now. We're gonna review the game. Okay. So now we why would a man do what he did to you? See, here's what I do. I got to get you off the hook. It was never about you. This is his thing. When you say grown man, I go like this. How grown is he? Where's he stuck? Where's he stuck? He's stuck. Somebody did something to him in order for him to perpetuate this behavior, because there was, and I'm gonna go real quick here. There was a time in his life where he was powerless. That's why someone's going to pay for that. Oh, guess what? I got these young kids in the school. How about that? And they're all going to pay for my pain. They're paying for his pain. Okay. Now, in the nonviolent communication, in this situation, we can't ask him, you know, so what are your needs being met, sir, by doing what you did? We can, you know, and well, hell, let's do it. Power, control, right? Maybe some form of morbid connection, all tragic, to harm another human being. This was all about him and what he can do to get over on another young person. Okay. And I'm sure Cynthia can please add into this thing, because this is your expertise. So help out. Remember, I'll take all the help I can get. And so you were never the problem. You happened to be at the damn school.
Right.
Because you saw another girl in your last story that, well, she's talking, you saw you. So here comes another one down the pike. Right. So the empathy is on you how you saw yourself, and making sure you didn't go, what did I do? Oh, hell no. You didn't do anything. You just were at the school, going to class. That's the observable. Going to class. Okay. And this man, he's the kind of man who takes advantage of the sheep for him to meet his need for whatever that is, to perpetuate his life and to fill the need of powerlessness that he probably had growing up. And I'm going to say that's
any way to use, here's my question, because I still find, our children are still voiceless in this situation.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had to tell my daughter, I'll be honest, there was a little boy that was patting my daughter on the behind. And I said, well, now, and we went through the list. Did you tell the teacher? Did you tell another teacher? Did you try this and that? Right. And when we got to the end of the list, I said, okay, so, has it stopped? And so then I said, okay, we're going, this is a conversation. This is an old conversation between white men and Black women. I said, the next time he touches you on the booty, I want you to come up out of South America and leave a handprint on his face. Okay. I said, you're going to have to connect. You only get one chance to do this. So, she said, Mommy, I'm going to get in trouble. I said, only trouble you have to worry about is the trouble from me. And we're going to handle this. I said, I'm going to tell you how this is going to go. They're going to call me. My phone's going to be off. My phone's going to be off, and I am going to handle it when I come to school. So I came to school one day, and everybody was clutching the pearls because my violent, bad Black girl daughter had clocked this little boy who had been popping her on the behind for months, right? And I had said something, she had said something, and she left a handprint, and I listened, and I did what, the West Side parents do. I said, oh, clutch the pearls. My child, ooh, maybe she needs anger management. Got a reference for a child psychologist that I promptly threw out the window. I was like, then when we got in the car, she's like, Mommy, I'm sorry, I did not. I said, did you leave a handprint? Said, yeah. I said, good. Now I'm going to tell you what else is going to happen. In about 3 weeks, or when your handprint is gone from his face, he's going to follow you around the rest of the year. I said, because what you just gave him is something he's never had, a boundary. I said, now, understand this. Let me tell you why you just did him a favor. Because what would happen if he came to our neighborhood, you guys are teenagers, and he tried that at the party? What would happen? Oh, right, exactly. He could die. Yeah, so think of this. You're saving his life. You are teaching him, that this can't be done. This is a valuable service.
Yeah.
Called natural consequences.
Natural and swift, right? And they still talk. This is, he's like, I said, yeah, he's going to grow up and marry a Black woman. You never know. But the communication that I'm looking for, and I don't know. My question is there a better way to be heard? Because I feel that there were several junctures before we got to coming up out of South America where we could have handled this, but the adults that were available didn't have the bandwidth. You understand? Because of the culture we're in, they didn't have the bandwidth to say, this is a real issue. This is a real problem. We need to defend this child right here.
So let's look at your child. Let's look at her. She's been approached by this young man, this young boy. How old? 12? Turned teenagers?
Oh no, they're little kids. They're in the 5th grade, 4th grade.
All right, so 10 years old. So your daughter, so what I do is I get real simple. I go, what are you needing? What are you needing by grabbing my butt? I do. I cut it simple. We got the
really?
four.
Okay.
Yeah, we got the 4 steps because I did this to I had a client, and his father would always verbally abuse him constantly. So I go, and I was just new to this. And let me try something. Ask your dad this question: Dad, when you call me these horrible names, are you meeting your need for self-worth? Right? He goes, yeah, just try it. I don't know if it works or not. Let's see if this nonviolent community education works. Okay, so he goes and he comes back the next month. I go, so what happened? Well, again, he was calling me horrible names. You're worthless. You're this, you're all that. I said, Dad, when you call me those horrible names, are you meeting a need for self-worth? Just asking. He fell on the floor and he croaked. No, he didn't. No, he started choking. He had an anxiety attack because that question allowed him to look at himself as to why he does that to his son. And so he had to really come honest with him. Jesus, I do horrible things to my son. So there's a double-edged sword here. Dad, stop abusing him verbally, which means the son never gets any more attention. See my point? Well, he doesn't talk to me, Mr. Oden. I know, shit, I didn't see that coming. I thought if he was healthy enough, he would say, something, I'm going to treat you differently. Boy, all these years of abuse, I want to change, but that didn't happen.
Wow.
So if we look at your daughters, so Johnny, I'm not going to call him Tyrone, but Johnny, what need are you meeting by doing this to me? Because now your daughter can go, because I have a need for respect. I have a need for boundaries, right? I have a need for appreciation. And you're not meeting those needs. So remember, whatever we do, we get a need. We do anything in this planet to get a need met, right? So he's getting a need met by doing what he's doing. He needs to understand what that is. They can go, oh shit, why am I keep patting on? Why do I do that? When you get them to do the work, they can do that self, inner look at themselves.
Examination.
Yeah, that's why I do that. Because like you said, then you mentioned boundaries, a big key. What goes on at the home?
Right.
Does he get to do what he wants because he's Johnny? Does mom and dad not, put a little, hey, no, that's as far as you go, pal. No, but I get to do anything when I'm at home. So then your daughter says, stop. She goes, no, because they don't tell me to stop at home. Why should I listen to you? They don't do it there. Everything goes to that home thing.
Right.
Yeah. So your daughter's paying for his inability to follow boundaries because he doesn't have any. Right. And I'm going to say, I'm guessing.
Yeah, we're guessing.
I don't want to get in trouble. So, okay, does that make sense?
Got you.
Yeah. So that takes your daughter off the hook. There's nothing your daughter did.
No.
It's nothing you did. It's the individual meeting their need tragically, getting their need met by doing what they do. When I supervise sex offenders, that's what I would do. I would bring it, I say, oh damn, thank you. That's the easiest caseload I ever had.
No, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So I have to bring this up because Chise touched on it in her story, and I have a similar one with not a child, but myself when I was about the same age in school. And my brother and I were 2 of 6 or 7 literal Black kids in the entire school.
Yeah.
And we had a number of situations and incidents that we talked to teachers and counselors and mom about, and none of our needs, like her daughter, none of her needs were being met in this situation. So here's what happened in my case. I'm out innocently playing around in the playground, and out of nowhere, a rock comes and hits me in the head. True story. That was the last day at that school for us. Mom took us both out, enrolled us in a junior high and a public school, basically. But here's what's missing to me in both stories, and it's what's missing, ironically enough, from the situation that we're all gathered here to talk about, is are the right people having the conversations and actually sitting down to make resolutions?
It appears no one is.
Yeah.
I don't know if they even know how to attack the problem or approach the problem to make sense of why this is even happening. Okay, so I always do this because there's certain things we can control, there's certain things we cannot control. You cannot control their stuff. What we can do is control how you respond to it and what belief systems or what a meaning you gave those incidences. So you can, so basically it's validating your experience. So you don't have to carry the weight about what they did to you. That makes sense? So all the rock throwing, whatever experience, negative experience you had at the school, right? We can put it in a perspective and go, oh, so that's what that is. And that's their stuff, but you paid a price for their stuff. So the whole thing is to unhook you and let you not carry that with you. They are the ones in pain. They're the ones who are frightened, but you paid the price. And it sucks because like, well, so then you're powerless and helpless, trying to defend yourself, and just trying to live day to day. And nothing happens to that. So you go on in life, well, nothing happens to them. And I got to carry that with me. Then now I'm over here trying to live a normal life. And but here it comes again. So what do you do with those experiences that come up that we may hold on to, that we carry with us, and how we relate to others in the big world, right? Because I always tell people, you learn all this stuff from 0 to 18. Now people are going to pay for what you did or did not get from the main caretakers who had the influence on you. Okay, so Martin, in your situation, we just got to unload it and go, oh, and validate it. I call it an emotional enema, emotional and social enema. And I do this, I go list all the needs you didn't get from that particular individual and attach 2 or 3 emotions to those needs. And there's more crying and cussing at me about the truth about their life on paper. This is my life this is your life on paper. Is it? Woo! Man, God, I didn't get anything. Well, this is why you're responding and behaving the way you are and how you see the world. But the big cry helped, didn't it? Now you know what you didn't get. Now we're at the point where we go like this. Now we can ask for them from somebody else. Now that you now know. Okay, we can ask. And maybe be strong enough to shift relationships and people we deal with. Because if you don't get X amount of needs from a certain individual, you can ask yourself a question: why am I here? Why am I here? Well, watch this. You're getting a need met.
Well, that's the thing too,
Tragically.
though. I got a need met. My brother got a need met as well. We didn't want to be at that school anyway, and we had been telling people of all the things, and we didn't want to be at the school. But the kid that threw the rock also got a need met.
Right. Everybody does.
It taught him a lesson of what do I do if I don't like something or someone that's here?
Yes.
I just throw a rock at it.
Yes.
That's right. And it'll go away.
Always remember, they're doing something in life to get a need met. Otherwise, we don't do it. The rock throwing, yes, their need for empowerment. Right? Your need to be heard was not met. There you go, right there. So we got one, right? Your need for support, right? There's 2. What else? What other need? Maybe self-respect, maybe, predictability. You can name all the needs. All of a sudden you're going, damn. I'm telling you, that experience is a butt kicker, because you actually see what you did not get. You actually see what emotions are attached to those. And you wonder why you're heavy. You're like, yeah. And you're crying, and then your body is all tense and the stress and all this. You're on medication. Because all those things that you were unable to identify because we just don't know. But once you do know, we validate that experience and go, okay, so that's where that comes from.
So I would like to interject here because in 2 minutes, we're theoretically ending our workshop, but we're gonna continue about 15 more minutes because John has told me that we do not have another workshop after this. So if anybody needs to leave, I'm just validating that you might have an appointment or something. But I do want to have kind of what I'm saying between nonviolent communication, sharing so people can hear our experiences, and especially experiences from people of color and Black people, Indigenous people. It's so rare that white people sit around and listen to the needs and the expressions of Black people, people in color, Native people speaking from a place of telling the truth. Because Black people, Native people have had to hold their tongues for so long, so they didn't get lynched or they didn't get dragged off, killed, in boarding school or whatever it was. We need to hear these voices. We need to hear the voices and the different, the realities of our brothers and sisters, so we can start seeing what we need to clean up and not being a part of it through coping, as Patricia says, and through just kind of going along with this thing that's creeping over us. That's just, so this nonviolent communication presentation is a slice of a way of looking at something, and we can bring a nonviolent communication where we just all learn how to do it in a group into our mix, where we can start bringing some of these modalities to clean up the energetic things that are within us that Patricia provides through some of her words and some of her ceremonies, and also doing other kinds of modalities that can start clearing some of this from us, so it's not lodged in our bodies and our our energetic systems. So this is what we intend on doing in this workshop, but there's so much to unpack that we can't just go straight to the solution and call it a day and love and light, now everybody's healed, kumbaya, because it's not real, folks. It's not real. Peace, I don't just say, okay, everybody hold hands, now we declare peace. No, because there's not peace inside of us. It's subconsciously embedded in us. And we have to take these things out. We have to see them. We have to clean them up by seeing them, diagnosing correctly, and then moving to clean them up, clean up what Patricia calls the criminal mind, or wrong thinking, wrong projecting, wrong, projecting on people in these situations, what Michael's describing as, seeing a reality and moving from that reality versus seeing the true needs under the reality. And I don't really say that's reality, it's more of a projection. The true needs that are making us act the way we act, that is what's going to start stripping this monster out.
Mm-hmm. And I think we need to be clear that this work has to be done by people who hold power and oppression, privilege and oppression. If Chise's daughter is free of debt when she is oppressed people are free of debt, though we have much to work on to rebuild ourselves, rebuild our cultures, to rebuild our sense of language and communication. But we cannot leave this without saying that a lot of this work is on white people, it's on men, it's on heterosexual people, it's on people who hold power. And that's why I say it's very dangerous for us to say, well, we're not fighting these people, we're fighting the system. Mm-hmm. I'm not fighting, that boy with the rock. I'm fighting the system of the boy with the rock. Well, we better engage that boy with the rock.
Yeah,
we
you better snatch
engage.
it.
Right, we better engage the system that is protecting the boy who touched Chise's daughter, because it is weaponized too. So a lot of this work has to happen internally, and actually a lot of Indigenous people, people of color, Black people don't want to be there for that. There's a lot of work that y'all got to do. That's again looking in that smoky mirror and saying, I can do this. I have the wherewithal that I can be a better human. I ask that of men all the time. We have to do better and be better. Because we're not being better. We're not better. You know, we're not healed, but we have to deal with that. We have to deal with our own systemic weapons. You know, so that nonviolence has to come from the oppressed, the oppressor. They have to stop being violent. You know,
And because my issue with the kid who threw the rock at Martin, he basically got rewarded for throwing that rock.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how our system is set up now.
Right.
And
right.
What I'm looking for in nonviolent communication is where is the place where we call forward the people who are perpetrating and making everybody else miserable.
Yeah, those people have to understand. They needed to know that they are responsible for the behavior. Remember, it's about the behavior. That boy who threw the rock is responsible but it also, like you said, it's the system that allows that. Your daughter, the system allowed that boy to keep patting because I don't get in trouble. So that's a mini microcosm of the big picture. Exactly. The same thing, but right there, right in front of you. And when people have to accept, they need to accept that their behavior and that their way of looking at the world is perpetuated by the freedoms and what are those two words I keep forgetting? Entitlement, and there's another one.
Strategy or
entitlement and where they give
privilege.
Entitlement and privilege, right? They get to do that without thinking about it. So they need to accept the fact that whole historical way of doing the world is because, and you benefit. And if they can do that, great. Now we can make it a better world.
Right.
But you got to accept the fact that you were the, you started this thing. Shit, it's real. You started. So acceptance is a big step on their end.
So nonviolent communication is a tool in the toolbox in all of what we're talking about. It's not just going to solve the entire issue. It's us also, like I said, talking to each other, busting our mythologies and getting clear about the actuality of a situation rather than a mythology that's being held. And then, sometimes some people don't get it. And then, as an example, I know somebody that threatened me and I had to call the police on him because that's all they understood.
Right.
So sometimes you have to go to that place, but it's making a call in heart of what, and the more we have tools, the more we can do this work, but also it's us getting together and really hashing this out. And then when we're going to get together, and it's not just going to be like presenters, but all of our groups, as individuals in this group, trying it and working through it with each other so we can all share and sharing our situations. This isn't about just a bunch of presenters barking at you. This is about us together really working some of these tools, really looking into this stuff. And so that's why I'm inviting all the people that are watching at home or wherever you are to, join us or join the people that are interested in really bringing a solution to this rather than polarizing back and forth. That's not creating a solution. And I know Patricia will, in probably future workshops, will bring more into it in the Indigenous standpoint of how to handle some of this too. That our workshop this time was focused.
Sorry to interrupt, but Patricia does have her hand up right now.
Oh yeah, Patricia. Patricia? Okay. I'm not sure if she's here or not. Oh, there she is. Go ahead, Patricia.
I had to be unmuted on mine and computer and yours as well. So I'd like to make a few comments here. Martin, I too was hit with a rock and I carry a scar over my eye, almost hit my eye. I still do carry a rock. I'm not going to say what was yelled at me when the rock was thrown. Now, I'm just going to go through a number of things quickly from my notes. Is that at 12, when I went to American Indian Catholic boarding school. I was told that my language and culture this is self-negation, was witchcraft, and that we were told we were all going to hell. So that's very extreme child abuse, verbal abuse, and that was pervasive. Now, I want to mention, let us be cognizant and aware that we have seen that guns have more rights than women. And I figured out that the reason why is that people want these guns in their homes because they're gearing up for a race war. We have to say that. We have to say that out loud, and this right to choose is a way of another new world order in which they have already planned for the welfare and childcare, mother and child care, from state to state, and they're already building them. They're already in process, and while they're calling the far left and the quote whoever and whatever the deep state is calling the boogeyman, big boogeyman of socialism, but they're gearing up for this mother and child care in every state, and that's a way to control and manipulate the money system. And then also this racism is a war of attrition, and a war of attrition is just to wear you down and wear you out. We're seeing that in Ukraine, and we have survived persecution, especially the medicine people have fought, what, 500 years of persecution. And I was told in 2000 that I could no longer be silent and to teach what I know. So this war of attrition, be finding ways to intervene. Now, I researched, and it came many times. I don't have to go looking for something, it comes to me. And there is historical evidence that the symbolism of the knee or the foot on the neck, there are some statues and there's some historical evidence that there's a very symbolic narrative that goes with it about domination, submission. And then what we have in Eurocentric, dualistic, inverse thinking. By the way, it is this criminal mind that Mari is referring to, I just say that's using our thinking for what it's not for. And that's win-lose, and nobody wins. That's destructive and death-producing decision for those outcomes that we're experiencing at a global crisis level. And so look into that. Also, Michael, what you're describing here is what in psychiatry and psychology they call catharsis. And many times this catharsis ends up in venting, ranting, blaming, and scapegoating. And that's where racism is trapped and entrenched in this pattern. In our language, the first step is the naming the out of balance and identifying the root cause. The second phase is called ilko, and ilko is talk about it, talk it out, cry it out, dance it, sing it, drum it, chant it, sweat it out, throw up herbs, vomit it out, the crystallized thought forms that one is carrying. And what one is carrying is, and stuffing into the body, of course, grows into some kind of sickness and disease, takes the person out of the body. It's the simplest way that I can say of what happens there. And so the last thing here is that there's the two addictions, the more pleasure, the more pain, and the people who get pleasure from inflicting pain, and then the people who are taught by their religions and belief systems that the more pain they receive, the more they're going to earn a reward and earn heaven. And so those two addictions are locking the people into pleasure of inflicting pain, and then receiving the pain and making that not worthy, poverty and pain and suffering is a spiritual path of life. And you all know about that pie in the sky that that has led people astray for many years, which is delay, and delay causes suffering. So let us not delay in our own remembering and reawakening to our own sacred self-identity, in which it's in the affirmative. It's not remediating the deficient self-image to some desired end state. Why? And I'm not going to say immigrants, settlers, or colonizers. I said invaders, because in our language worldview, it is very descriptive. It's right now, there's a lot of saving face. And as a leveler and truth teller, I didn't grow up in that environment. I grew up in a ceremonial environment in which you sat down and the medicine people said, what happened? And then you say, yes, this is what happened. And that's very beneficial for one's own accountability to not be talking from the not self and the non-reality, and to talk from our leveling and truth telling. And I've paid all that price in this society and this system. I paid that price to this day, and I'm still alive. I'm still here to say thank you. My spiritual family and relatives.
You know, this program, like last time, is just, you know, anybody missing it, you know, when people are telling the truth, it's what we long for and it's where it's at. That's all I can say. At least that's how I feel. And I just love all of you so much that you're baring your soul, and you're even airing out your dirty laundry. And if we're, you know, if we make a mistake, we're going to help each other, love each other through it, correct each other through it, because together we can get through this.
Mari, I left one more thing out.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go for it.
Just because I'm so many things to focus on. One more thing. This is the more pleasure, the more pain is a mood change. That is the addiction for the substitute of the joy of true spirituality. And that's what the system, what we call the system, wants to keep us addicted into. It's called trauma bonding.
Oh, I'm so glad that you capped it with that. Just so glad. You know, together, and we all have superpowers, and reflecting with each other and being willing to open up and learn and embrace a greater truth so we can step into it together. I mean, what else are we doing here on this planet with our time?
Really?
And when I look at the young kids in their strollers and stuff, I had a young kid look at me and I said, I bless you. And she waved. And I said, I'm trying my best, but I'm not sure I can do what I have to do. And she looked at me like, are you out of your mind? And she gave me this big scowl. And I knew, wait a minute. I have the ability to do what I can do right now in this lifetime. And I'm not going to shirk my responsibility to her, because that is not love. And it's hard, but you know what? Oh my God, the freedom that I feel from committing to my true nature and my being and my sacred dream is just off the charts. And I love all of you so much. And I thank all of our audience members. You are not audience members, you are presenters also, because you will come and share with us.
Yeah, I have a song. Ready?
No,
Can I interject a song?
5 seconds.
I'll
only.
stop the world
5 seconds,
and
George.
melt with you. We've seen the difference and it's getting better all the time. There's nothing all of us can do. So stop the world and melt with you.
Thank you.
We need to stop this world, and we need to get present, and we need to bring ourselves present by cleaning the stuff up inside us.
Thank you.
And with that, we are going to start out with ceremony. I hear Martin is giving a drum in the background. Let's see, who is the first to do ceremony? I have to look at this chart, sorry. Olarishe.
Oh. Olojo ni moju bai bashe. Waru moju bai bashe. Moju baba banwa, moju ba yanwa, moju baba ba ati ai ku orisha I bai bai tonu. Kosi ku, kosi fetibo, kosi ofo, kosi eyu, kosi alopa. May death be no more. May there be no more disrespect. May there be no more sickness. And by sickness, we also mean mental health and insanity. We ask Orisha Fumini Ire to bring us love, luck, to bring us alafia, health, and well-being. Fumini Iwapele, to bring us all good character, that we may walk on the earth and move through the body of God as a healing force rather than a disease. Fumini Ogbon, which is wisdom. Fumini Ifaya, which is enlightenment. These are the blessings that we call down from our ancestors. Ashe, 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 Sheo. We give all respect, and I return to the center.
Sister Cynthia.
Expressing deep gratitude to the spirits of the 9 directions for being in our circle today. We bid you farewell. May you go in peace and carry that peace with you to all the corners of the world. And I pass it to the center.
Iriam in you. Iguakt na flash. Isarshish grenu. Inyela na gyali. Inaliaktina. Imira lasrach. Iluas giwiha. Inivnakt farga. Imun shas bakt talun. Inaigenacht karaga. We go forth today under the power of heavens, the light of the sun, the radiance of the moon, splendor of the fire, speed of lightning, swiftness of wind, depth of the sea, stability of earth, firmness of rock. From the heights we have gone to the depths, may we be encircled in love, protection, and safety. And I pass to Sister Abba.
Thanking and blessing all that join this sacred circle from the 4 directions, we cleanse and purify ourselves in a good way. As we close the circle, washing ourselves fully and completely with these medicines, bathing every corner of our energetic fields and into the beyond of our daily lives. As we reflect in the coming days on all the messages and prayers shared today, may our thoughts, words, and deeds reflect the good work of realigning our own relationships with Mother Earth and all forms of life upon her. The sacred circle is now closed. May we go out into the world wrapped in a blanket of love and protection as we breathe new life into creation. All my relations.
Yes, 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 yes.